Good evening, everyone. How are you doing? Hey, I want to do something a little different tonight. I'm going to jump on here. Hopefully my sound doesn't start echoing everywhere on me. Okay, I see a lot of people. Matt, Hamilton, Mona. Oh, there it comes. See? Now I can hear myself. That's awesome. So I see Lori Crane, Donna Elmore, Marion, Lisa Adair, Nikki Hayes, Diana. Hey, it's good to see all of you. Thank you for joining us tonight. I just wanted to give you a shout out and say hello. I'm sure there's a lot more on here. I guess there's almost 30 right now. But I just want to say hi. I'm glad that you're joining us again tonight. And I'm excited about tonight. If y'all remember, several months ago, we did some teachings on transitions, and I want to bring that back up tonight because with all the changes that are going on right now, they're one after another. We're either changing and transitioning right now, or you're going to be, or you've been already through one, you're in the middle of one. So I want to revisit this tonight, and moving forward, some of us are going to have to change our what we call norm. A lot of us are. The church itself may even have to change what is normal for us. And a lot of that comes with transitions. So with that being said, we have to understand that there is a lot of difference, again, in change and transition. It's not the same thing. Change itself is situational. So if I come in this sanctuary, beautiful sanctuary, if I put new paint on the walls, or say I change my clothes, or say you get a new boss at work, or things like that, that's a change for you. That's the first part of it. But transition, on the other hand, is physiological. It's something that your mind and your actions connect, and something happens. Change is just up front. So this is the process that we go through as we internalize and come to terms with the details of the new situation that change is bringing. So we're coming to the conclusions that, hey, change is happening. This is what's going to happen in result of that. We're going to have to do some things different. We're going to have to make some transitions. So what it is essentially is when change happens without transition, it is just rearranging chairs. So just an example of this, I'm going to take this bar stool right here and move it over. Cool. I changed where the chair was sitting, but that's really no relevance. I got to figure out what was the purpose of me moving that. Well, if it was in my way, that's fine. But changing it without transitioning and doing something different in my life is just moving chairs around. There's nothing different going on. There's no physiological change going on. So change is what I'm going to do, but what without why and how has no significance. So me doing something but not having a reason behind doing it, what's the significance of doing it? So unless you know why, you can't find out how. This happens in churches a lot. Churches make changes, but they don't relay the vision to the people. So we don't relay to the people why we're doing certain things. So it's easy to come up and say, hey, we're going to do this. Well, that's cool, but what's the purpose behind it? What's the vision behind it? Why are you doing things differently in your life? What things are you looking to do differently going forward that's going to make an impact on your life? Not only what are you going to change, but why are you going to change it? Without the why, the what doesn't matter. Then we get to the how. Like I said, when we get to as far as churches go, I've been involved in the production on churches for this church for several years. And one of the things that has to happen in order for people to buy into what's going on, they want solid vision and they want good reasoning behind things that are going to be different. So people aren't really resistant to change. I hear a lot of people say, well, people just don't want change. And I want to correct that. People aren't really afraid of change. What it is they don't want to transition. Change is not that big of a deal. Transition is where the big deals come in. Transition requires something to die. And a lot of people don't want to give up something. So when people ask what is changing, they're not really asking, hey, Pastor, what is changing? What they're asking is, how is what's going to happen going to affect me, and what am I going to have to give up? That's what people are really asking. So in a sense, when something's going to be different, people aren't necessarily afraid of the initial different. What they're afraid of is the things they're going to have to do differently personally, the things they're going to have to change, the things they're going to have to give up. So especially in the church setting, people ask, well, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And what they're essentially asking is how is this going to interrupt my schedule? How is this going to interrupt what I do? And this is essentially no different than what's going on right now in the world. All the crazy stuff that's going on with the pandemics and the sicknesses and the economy and all that stuff, the changes, yeah, they're a little unnerving, but the problem is the transitions that we're all having to make in order to adapt to said changes. And that's what's going to continue to happen going forward. Things are going to keep changing, but we're going to have to continue to make transitions in order for the changes to do what they're supposed to be doing. So many people talk with God and they decide that they want to make a change. And that's fine. But here's the issue with change. Change is where I decide that I want something to be different, but making a decision and vocalizing it is not doing anything. So when I say, hey, I want to drive a different vehicle today, that's fine. But until I go get the keys to that vehicle, open the door, get in it, start it, and take off, me saying that I want to do that and making the decision that I'm going to drive a different vehicle is doing me no good. But if I say, hey, it's time to drive a new vehicle, and then I vocalize that and I say, okay, now I go get the keys, get the truck, get the car, get in it, take off and drive. Not only have I initiated a change, but I have made a transition in my life. I've made a connection between what I'm saying that I'm going to do and what I'm actually doing. And a lot of people right now, they've got all these aspirations about how they want to be better, what they want to see, what they want to do. The church, well, we could do this. The church can do this. And that's fine to vocalize all those things. But talking about things is not getting them done. Change is just making the decision that something needs to be different. For example, I do this one probably, twice a year. Hey, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to eat healthy, and I'm going to lose weight. So guess what I just did? I made a decision. And I vocalized that. I said, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm verbalizing to you, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to eat better and I'm going to work out. Cool, right? Well, gym time rolls around. Hey, John, you going to the gym today? I think I need to do some stuff at home. I got some stuff I need to finish up at home. So my vocalizing the fact that I'm going to go to the gym is the change, but there's no transition there. I have not made the connection. Then mealtime rolls around, my favorite. Hey, John, you going to eat healthy today, right? I'm pretty tired. I think I'm just going to grab something quick and go home. Welcome to McDonald's. How may I help you? Yes, I'll have a large fry, a double cheeseburger. Go ahead and give me that buy one, get one for $1 coupon you got there on the Big Macs. Do you have tacos? How about gyros? How about a chimichanga with extra queso? Yeah, see, I'm going to eat something small and take it home today. So what I've done is I have vocalized the fact that I am going to change my eating habits. But when it comes time to order, which is the hardest part, I do nothing. There is no transition in my life. All change, no transition. Here's the thing about transitions. They're not optional. It's not if I get around to it. It's not an add-on to the change. It's not an icing on the cake to change. Transition is mandatory in order for change to take effect. In order for what I'm doing differently to take effect, I have to make a transition. Something's got to be totally different. This is what people mean when they say, man, everything's changed, but nothing's different. I mean, you've heard that statement before, right? Everything's changed, but nothing's different. Well, that's what happens. There's a lot of changes, but everything stays the same. Every transition has these 3 stages. If you remembered me teaching this before, bear with me, but every transition has these 3 stages. The first one is what scares people. The first change that comes with transition is that there's going to be a necessary ending. And this is what I was talking about a while ago when I said people aren't afraid of change, they're afraid of transitions. Because transition means that something's going to come to an end. Something's going to come to an end. This is letting go of my old ways, my old identity. This is where loss happens. When a transition starts, there's a necessary ending to something. So I want you to think right now and reminisce what's going on in your life right now. So a lot of people are like, well, how's this relevant to me? I guarantee you 100% of the people watching right now are in the middle of some sort of transition, and you've already experienced some sort of necessary ending. How do I know that? We made a major transition on campus when we had a necessary ending that came to us when they said we don't need to be having churches with large crowds anymore. So there was a necessary ending to the assembling together. The first part of our transition. Next, the second one is the neutral zone. This is where the old is gone, but the new is not fully operational. This is where your critical psychological realignments and your adaptations and your new patterns come in. So the neutral zone is where I understand what happened what needed to end is already ended, but I'm not quite comfortable with it yet, and I'm not quite ready to go what's next yet. So the neutral zone is where a lot of people get stuck. And the reason that I want to get this to you tonight is because I don't want you to get stuck in the middle of transition. Transition is important. Transition is life-giving, and sometimes we're forced into a transition. Sometimes things happen in life and they say, hey, you can no longer go sit down and eat in a restaurant. So we got to get food and cook at home. I know, that's crazy, and I can't believe that has to happen. But there was a necessary ending. Restaurants closed. Well, hey, we got to figure something else out now. Then we got in the neutral zone. And a lot of you were in your kitchen going, hey, what does these numbers on this dial mean? 2, 4, 6, 8. The more you turn it, the hotter it gets. You're welcome. I appreciate you listening to me. But that's what happens. You're in this neutral zone, and you're not quite comfortable with all the changes that's going on in your life. But I'm telling you right now, there's a lot of neutral zones going on, and there's a lot more to come. And it's important that you recognize them, because a lot of people get stuck in neutral zone, and they get fallen into depression, and they start saying, well, why did that have to end and nothing else has gotten better? All this stuff, that's neutral zone. But don't get discouraged, because the beautiful thing about this transition process is once there's been a necessary ending, once you've been in the neutral zone and you're starting to get things figured out and you're starting to make your adaptations and your new patterns are coming to take, then comes the best part, and that's next. When we've talked about this several times throughout this process, this too shall pass, right? It's going to end. So what happened is we had the necessary ending before. We're kind of in the middle of the neutral zone right now because we're still adapting to everything that's going on as a church, as a family, as an individual. Everything in your life right now, you're in the middle of an adaptation stage. So what happens and what's beautiful about this is necessary endings taking place. I'm in neutral zone right now. I'm getting it all figured out. And then all of a sudden, windows of heaven open up and we move into the third phase of transitioning, which is next. This is the end of the transition, but it is the new beginning. This is where you develop your new identity, your new energy. You start to feel better. You start to act better. Things are more optimistic in your life. You discover a new sense of purpose. And all the changes that we saw, we see the differences that they're making. All the changes that took place that we had to make these transitions for, we see how they're relevant now. So this is neat because transition begins with an ending and finishes with a beginning. What happens when I'm in transition is something ends to start transition, and then something begins to end it. I begin something brand new, something fresh. Remember Jesus, in the scriptures it says, all things are passed away, behold, everything's new again, right? And when I come to Christ, the old stuff is gone, I become a new creature again. So this is what happens in our lives right now. Just because you're having to make a lot of transitions in your life doesn't mean that this is all bad. I love this. We've been involved with some churches that have reached out to us and said, hey, how do y'all do live streaming? Hey, what did you do to online giving? Hey, how do we do this? How do we do that? And churches are reaching out and they're saying, we're ready to move forward and we're ready to get connected in the kingdom again. We're ready to see these changes that we've been discussing actually come to fruition, which is going to require some transitions. I'm in love with that because I feel the body unifying. I feel like there's churches that were once totally opposed to doing things that are starting to be a part of it, and it's starting to develop fruit in their ministries. It's a beautiful thing. This is something I'm actually more familiar with now. But when you come home with your first child, that's a big change. But change brings transition. And transition begins with an ending. I learned this one the fun way. This ending comes in the form of letting go of regular sleep. Not having a bunch of extra money like you had before to just spend on random things. Losing some alone time with your spouse. You got to get the point where I'm going from, right? This major change in the form of a child came about. And all of a sudden, in order for this to work, I had to make some transitions in my life. The transition of raising my child began with an ending. The sleep changed. The money habits changed. The time together changed. The importance of the time together became more important. Those are changes. But all this stuff started with an ending. Then we moved into this neutral zone. This is where in life you find yourself in a psychological no man's land. This is neutral zone. It's like, what is going on in my mind right now? What is going on in my life right now? And this is where we ask the questions like, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing from here? The old is gone, but I don't know what's new yet. It's not even comfortable. Why couldn't I have stayed where I was at? Well, I'm here to tell you right now, if you haven't read this book, Good to Great, go get it and read it. Good is the enemy of great. The things in your life that were good before, God has got better ahead for us. But good keeps us from going after great. In order to go to great, good has to end. And some of us, that's scary. We get comfortable and we're happy with things the way they are, and good has to end in order for me to go for great. So this is where frustration sets in. There is frustration in transition, but I want you to also know that there is favor in transition. Here's how. Your do, what you're going to do, is revealed by your who. And in order to know and do what God has created you to do, you have to know who you are. You have to know whose you are. In order to reach this promise that God has given you, in order to go to the next phase in your life, whatever that's going to be after all this, you have to understand that every promise has a process. The process is not getting you to destiny, it is your destiny. A lot of people take for granted the journey and just try to get to the prize. But the prize is the journey. Attaining all the information and learning all the new things about life, that is the prize. If you cling to the promise and go through the process, you will find that your purpose is found in the process. There's a lot of you right now, you're in the middle of this process of making all these changes in your life. But what you don't understand is that by trusting God throughout the process that we're in, you're going to find the newfound purpose that God's creating for your life. This church is finding newfound purpose throughout this process. And that's what's beautiful about it. If we hang on to the promises of God, if we hang on to the things that He's promised us, we find purpose in the process. Sometimes the process convinces us that the promise was a lie. Here's why. Sometimes the process is difficult. Sometimes we spend a lot of time in the process, in the neutral zone, in the area that's not moving forward to the extent that we want it to be. And what happens is we have this promise that God has given us, but we get stuck in this process, and the process tries to tell us that what God promised us isn't true because it hasn't happened yet. I just want you to understand tonight, people, whatever you're facing right now, if God has given you a promise, just because the process is lingering doesn't mean the promise isn't true. So here's my challenge for the current and coming transitions that we're going to face. Don't take the old you, the old frustration, the old problems into the new beginning. Now listen to me, this is very important. Don't take the old you and the old problems into the new beginnings. When you have a necessary ending, leave that old stuff there. Let it die. Don't bring all your old problems into your new promise. We have a chance to fresh start right now. We have a chance to make a transition right now into something beautiful. And what happens is we try to drag all our old gear. Think about this. Think about starting a new company. Think about starting a new company. Say you used to run a paper mill. Well, that's cool. Well, say that paper mill shut down and it's time for you to start a new construction business. Well, you can't take all the products and the machines from the paper mill and run the construction company. You got to leave the paper mill stuff behind and run with a new construction company with new resources and new machines and new equipment. That's what God's trying to do in your life right now. He's trying to say all this stuff right now that the enemy meant for evil, I told you I'm going to turn around and make it good for you. But here's what you got to do. You got to leave all that old stuff that's supposed to be dying right now alone and move on with the new tools, the new equipment, the new mindset that I'm trying to give you. It's all part of the transition process. So before you move to next, when you're in neutral zone, do this. Face it, fix it, forgive it, and forget it. I'm going to say that one more time. Face it, fix it, forgive it, and forget it. Anything in your life right now that you don't need to take and move forward with, let go of it and move on. Some of you are lacking confidence and feel like you've taken a loss. But I want to ask you this question. What if what you're experiencing right now is not a loss? What if it's a new start? Because in order for you to make transitions and to move into better things in your life, old things have to die. So what if what you're experiencing right now is not loss? What if it's a start? Life has no rewind button, but it does have redemption options. I can't rewind and fix stuff, but I can redeem myself and move forward. You've always heard that the children of Israel got out of Egypt, but they didn't get Egypt out of them. In other words, they were led out of Egypt, but their mind was still there. This is the epitome of change with no transition. Physically, they moved to a new location, but their minds were still in Egypt. Their minds were still in captivity. Do not allow yourself through this season that God's trying to form us into. Don't allow your old mindset and your old habits and your old guilt and your old depression and anxiety. Don't allow that old stuff to come with you into new seasons. I'm excited about what God's doing. So I want to move on here to a man in the Bible who experienced a major transition in his life. You may feel like your life is absolutely crazy right now. You may feel like the world's crazy right now. But you must remember that God can change your situation at any given time, and it will be the right time. I love this story. Luke chapter 19, verses 3 and 4. He was seeking to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was small in stature. So he ran on ahead and climbed up in a sycamore tree to see him, for Jesus was about to pass by. I can just imagine this situation. Right now, with all the chaos in the world, there are some people who are like, where is Jesus? I can't see him. There's so much going on. Everything's nuts right now. I need to see him. I need to feel him. I need to know he's there. So he was seeking Jesus, but on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was small in stature. He wanted to see Jesus. The story goes on to tell us that Jesus looked up into the sycamore tree and he saw Zacchaeus. I remember this so vividly because when I was a little kid, we used to sing that. Zacchaeus was a wee little man was he. He climbed up in a sycamore tree for the Lord he wanted to see. That's exactly what's going on right here. So Zacchaeus had climbed up in this tree because he's trying to find Jesus. Couldn't see him because the crowd was so heavy. So this isn't in my notes, but just a point to make to you. Just because everything is going on crazy in the world right now doesn't mean that you don't need to do whatever it takes to get to Jesus. Whatever is going on in your life right now, if you need to find Jesus, you need to get to him, you need to do whatever it takes to get to him. That's a good side note for you right there. But here's the thing. Seeing Zacchaeus in the tree led Jesus to visit his home. So you see how these transitions start to take place. Then a visit in his home led to Zacchaeus receiving Jesus. And receiving Jesus led Zacchaeus to making his wrongs with other people right. So he climbed up a tree to finally see Jesus. Jesus saw him. Jesus went to his home. Zacchaeus received Jesus. And then Jesus led Zacchaeus to making all his wrongs right again. But what would have happened if Zacchaeus would have only seen Jesus, but nothing happened after that? There would have been a change. He would have climbed a tree, but nothing would have transitioned in his life. This is what's beautiful. Without the tree, Zacchaeus would not have been able to see Jesus over the crowd because he was short. It said right there, he was small in stature in verse 3. The only way Zacchaeus was able to meet Jesus was by climbing up a tree. This is what's neat. This specific type of tree is sycamore tree. Is that long before Zacchaeus ever climbed in that tree, God had to plant that tree in that exact spot. Sycamore trees can live anywhere from 200 to 600 years. So for that thing to be full grown, you got to understand, long before Zacchaeus found that tree, God planted it in that exact spot for him. So if Zacchaeus would have been walking through there and God would have planted a bush there instead of a sycamore tree, Zacchaeus would have been out of luck because you can't climb up in a bush and be stable enough to stand in it and see over a crowd. So God was very specific with what he was doing. Can you imagine? This could have been 400, 500, 600 years before this moment in time that God planted this exact tree in this exact spot. It wasn't happenstance. God knew that hundreds of years later, a short man that wouldn't be able to see over a crowd was going to be interested in finding Jesus and would be able to climb this little tree that's right there and see him. And your life right now is no different than that. Jesus was aware that you would be sitting in the middle of a worldwide pandemic right now in 2020, and your life would be chaotic and it would be a wreck, but he also knew that he had already made provision for a miracle in your life for you to be able to move forward and to find Jesus regardless of how crazy the crowds were, regardless of how bad the situation was. God had provision years and years and years ago for this exact moment for you right now. Right now. Jesus wanted the relationship with Zacchaeus. He didn't want an acquaintance. He didn't want to talk to him. He wanted a relationship with him. Luke 19:5 says, Jesus came to the place. He looked up. He saw him and he said, Zacchaeus, make haste. Come down. Today I must abide in your house. Now think about this. We do everything that we can. And right now people crave the house of God. Jesus was walking by this situation right here and he says, Zacchaeus, listen, come down. I want to go to your house. Think about where you're at right now. You haven't been able to come to God's house, but have you invited him into your home? Have you allowed him to come to your home? Because if Zacchaeus would not have accepted Jesus' offer to come to his house, Zacchaeus would not have been saved. Zacchaeus' wrongs would not have been right. But he allowed Jesus to come in. Jesus always knows right where we are. He walked up to the very tree that Zacchaeus was at amidst the crowd and spoke to him. The very spot that he was sitting in and spoke to him. Zacchaeus was just trying to see Jesus. It doesn't say anything beyond that. It just says for the Lord he was trying to see. But Jesus had a totally different plan. Jesus wanted Zacchaeus to understand the change that you're making, the fact that you showed interest in me right now and you climbed this tree is only the beginning. But in order for your life to move forward, there's some transitions that we're going to have to make. And that all started with Zacchaeus allowing Jesus to come in and accepting him as his Lord and Savior. This change led to major transitions in Zacchaeus' life. The transition that you are in or that you're soon to be might be pretty difficult for you. But I just want you to know that Jesus has already made provision for your future. And what I want to close with tonight is I want you to remember through everything that's going on in your life. First of all, you are not where you're at by happenstance. The resources that God is placing in your life, the people that's God placing in your life, the new things that God's placing in your life, they're not happenstance. It was provision for this very moment in time right now. And as we move forward, I need you to understand this one very, very important thing. No matter what you're facing in your life right now, God is not a resource. He is the source. God is not just a resource that you can pull and use when you need to. He is the source for all things. And I'm telling you right now, if you're in the middle of a transition or you're about to go into one, because many of us are, I would endeavor to say everyone in America, maybe in the world, has had to make some or are about to experience transitions. Remember, in the middle of the chaos, God is the source for what you need. And He's already made provision. He's already planted a little sycamore tree ready for you to climb so you can see Jesus. There's always, always a way to get to Jesus. Always a way. God, we thank you so much for this night. I thank you for everyone that's joined us. God, I thank you for those that are getting to watch and getting to be a part of this. I thank you for those that are gathering their families together to come and to hear your word. I thank you right now that you have accepted the invitation into the homes of all of these people that are watching. You are abiding with these families right now, and I thank you for that, God. I pray right now, Lord, that you would continue to build this house. God, and I just pray for the future. God, you've got a master plan. God, this necessary ending that we felt, this neutral zone that we're in, is only bringing amazing things for the next. I pray right now that you keep our minds and our hearts positive, help us to stay strong and focused on you, and help us to remember above all things that you are not a resource, you are the source of all things for us, God. God, I pray blessings and favor over everyone struggling right now. I pray healing over everyone that's sick. It's in your mighty name we pray for all these things. Jesus, amen. Guys, thank you again for hanging out with me tonight. I want to re-invite you again Sunday morning. We will be here ready to rock and roll again. Once again, thank you to everyone who's supporting us, who's watching us, who's hanging out with us on a weekly basis. We're really looking forward to seeing you. I feel like we're getting closer to that. Keep up with the news, keep up with the announcements. We'll do the same, and if things start to change, I promise you we'll let you know as soon as we can. God bless you. Thank you again for watching us live tonight.